Our verse this evening will be Genesis 5, verse 13 and 14. Galatians 5. Thank you, Casey. For you were called to freedom, brothers. Only do not use your freedom as an opportunity for the flesh, but through love serve one another. For the whole law is fulfilled in one word. You shall love your neighbor as yourself.
Sorry that there was that confusion. I would have loved to hear Elliot speak as well. But this is about the time. I've not done one of these in about 6 years now. If you're new to the congregation, the youth group tries to take a trip every summer. Half of those have been something fun, and another half of those have been mission trips. Several years ago, we went to Georgia, up in my hometown, and we did that for about 3 years and served that congregation there. It's a smaller congregation. We served that congregation doing lots of different things, helping put on VBS and door knocking, cleaning up and stuff, even helping neighboring communities and other neighboring churches around there as well. We have not done a mission trip like this in a few years, and so if you are new and you don't know Trevor yet, Trevor Smoot is our domestic missionary in Amory, Mississippi. He comes to us from Ohio and also the Bear Valley Institute. Our elders spent a lot of time trying to figure out what this process was going to look like, who we were going to get to do it, and then even more time with Joe King and Mike Scott and Pete Pierce involved as well, trying to find a congregation that our vision fit. What we were looking for was a smaller congregation that could not support a minister that was looking to grow, that had maybe dealt with some loss, that had dealt with some setbacks. They were looking to grow and they needed help. And we wanted to do that by sending a missionary domestically. And so that's what we did. This past January, in the whole entire year of 2022, Trevor was here with us, became part of our family. We really enjoyed getting to know Trevor and making that relationship with him. In January, we sent him off to Amory, or Hatley, as he'll tell you. It's in Hatley, Mississippi, but Amory is the larger community right there around them. And so we've sent him to Amory to start ministering, evangelizing to this community and helping the New Hope Church there get back on its feet. And that's kind of what we're looking at here. And so the youth group and I went in January, helped him move in, spent some time with that congregation, and we made a plan that around the summertime, we're going to do this again. We're going to come back and we're going to see you guys. We're going to help, whatever that looks like. So over the next few months, with Trevor's help, as he is there, he's trying to figure out what's going to affect this community the most, what's going to affect the church the most. So he and I had a lot of correspondence trying to figure out what are we going to do when we get there. In April, I think it was March or April 1, they had just the terrible tornadoes that went through there. That community was affected. Thankfully enough, the community where the New Hope Church is in Trevor's house was barely even touched. They experienced some I guess collateral damage, but not very much at all. And so we started to kind of massage this out a little bit. What was this going to look like? And so we made our plans that we were going to do a mission trip, if you will, to New Hope. Mission may not be the best word. That's just what we've called it. Mission may not be the best word. Basically, this was an encouragement trip. If you read throughout Scripture, especially in Paul's letters and through the book of Acts, you see a lot of changing of the guard here, and a lot of guys coming to this place and then moving to that place, and we're going to leave some behind here, and then we're going to maybe take some that were here and move them over there. There's a lot of movement as far as mission works are concerned. And one of the things that Paul is really good at and encourages his fellow missionaries to do is encourage each other. One of the things that is really difficult to do is to go somewhere that you're foreign to and become a part of that family, become a part of that community, and do something very incredible on your own. It's hard to do. That's what we were asking Trevor to do. He's not married, he doesn't have any kids, and we're asking him as a single 28-year-old man to go to this community in Podunk nowhere, y'all. And you're gonna help revive this church. That was a really hard task to put on him, but he accepted the challenge. He accepted it, and let me tell you, if I can say anything about Trevor, even right now, he is firing on all cylinders. He is ready to go. He sees the need, but he sees the hope. No pun intended, because it's new hope. He sees the hope in the church and what it can be, and he is driven to help that church become what it used to be. But our goal was not necessarily to go and evangelize to the community. Our goal was to go and see our brother. Our goal was to go and encourage him. That was the primary goal we had in leaving to go over there, was to see Trevor, was to encourage him, to give him some revitalization, if you will, to shower him with some love and some old relationships, and to meet with that congregation again and give them some encouragement. That's what most of this trip was for. This is a small congregation. This next slide, I guess. So our Mississippi mission trip, these are just some of the pictures there for your enjoyment. But in Monroe County, the population in Monroe County, where Hatley or Amory is approximately 34,000 in comparison to Santa Rosa County, which is 190,000. So quite a bit smaller than the county that we live in. In comparison even to one of our smaller towns in Santa Rosa County in Jay, Florida, you have about 700 people. They have about 500 to 600 people in Hatley, Mississippi. So if you want to say, what does Hatley really look like? What's kind of the community? What's its culture and all of those things? It would be a lot like Jay, Florida, and even more so very much country. I'm just going to say it. Very much country. I'm a hillbilly, y'all. I come from Cherry Log, Georgia, okay? I come from Cherry Log, Georgia with a population of 250 people, all right? We have no red lights. We have a few stop signs, and we have a general store and a post office, all right? So when we say, like, kind of backwoods off of the reservation here, that is Hatley. I mean, when you get off the interstate, you drive for a long time. It's basically what I used to tell people when they come visit us at our house. Drive until you think you've went too far, and keep going. That's Hatley. All right, you're going to drive, and I would look at Amanda. Amanda has been my faithful navigator for months now. And I'm just like, man, we got to be getting there. And she's like, nope, not yet. Just keep driving. 7, 8 more miles here, 7, 8 more miles there, and you just drive into this, and it's beautiful country, y'all. If you've not been there, Amory, Hatley's beautiful country, beautiful place to be, but a very small town. Not a lot of subdivisions. So here it's easy to door knock. Here it's easy to evangelize. We can go a half a mile here and a half a mile there, and we can hit up some subdivisions, and we can evangelize and door knock 500 doors in a day. Hitting 500 doors in a day in Hatley, Mississippi would be a tall order with 15 people. We hit, I think the day we went door knocking, I think we might have hit about 30 houses, 30 to 35 houses was what we were looking at. And so it's a very small community there. It's large, it's spread out. The congregation is very small. The congregation is very small. When we say very small, the congregation I come from right now has about 70 to 75 people. That's small compared to what I grew up in. Hatley, New Hope, 17 people. Our youth group is bigger than their congregation. I want you to take that in for just a second. That congregation has less people than my youth group does. And they worship together, they come together every day. But when you have that few of people trying to build each other up and evangelize a community, that can be quite difficult. They have a larger Baptist church right in the center of town there that's very prominent, and that's where most of the people go. So trying to pull people away from there and evangelize to them can prove to be very challenging. And that's what Trevor has dealt with. That's what the congregation there has dealt with. I think it's also small for another reason, and I want to go ahead and tell you this. We want to be as transparent as possible. We found a congregation that had been struggling since COVID. In March of 2020, they shut down. We shut down in March of 2020. I think it was in April or May we opened back up. They opened back up in April of 2022. 2 years. 2 years, y'all, with not meeting together. There were several families that had youth that left. There were several families that were looking for another place to go worship together, and they left. And so they lost quite a few families, active families, young families, due to the pandemic and staying closed, having their doors closed. And so their decision did affect them. And so we want to be as transparent as possible there, is that they have now incurred the loss of that decision, and they're reeling from that. So the congregation there is about 17 people, and I would venture to say with Trevor there, he and two more are probably the only 3 people under the age of 60. And so when you have a small congregation, it's hard. When you have a small congregation of older folks and not a very diverse culture of people, that proves to be even more difficult. And so Trevor has taken on a very difficult task here. But one of the things that I think that got Mike's attention, that got our elders' attention, and Trevor's as well, is though they are advanced in years and though they are low in number, they are very passionate and energetic to want to grow. And they see where they have failed in that area in the last couple of years, and they're eager to get back to where they were before, which is why they chose to go there, chose to send Trevor there, and which is why we chose to go and encourage them as well. We wanted to help them in that moment, in that attitude that they have. Let's go ahead and take that and use it and fan that flame, if you will, and try and build them up. So when we get there, we do find there are several people there. Most of the congregation is very, very encouraged by us being there. They're very happy and uplifted that we're there. What we will find as we go through the week is that although they're very excited for us to be there, there's only about a handful of people that are excited enough that they want to get down with us and get involved, which proves even more difficult. And we'll talk about some of that more here in just a second. One of the things through, I guess, my years of ministry and even being in the church, when you're small for a certain period of time, it's kind of like a ball team that's not very good. You kind of accept it. You know, it's like Vanderbilt shouldn't be in the SEC, but they just are. But they're not very good, you know. It's like the Bad News Bears, right? The Bad News Bears knew they were a bad ball team, and they didn't care. They didn't care that they were a bad ball team. What happens in smaller congregations a lot of times, happens in larger congregations too, but what happens in smaller congregations is that if you don't experience that growth and that thriving every so often and have that roller coaster of ups and downs and just experience those ups and it feels more like either this or more down, then you kind of just accept the fact that, hey, we're just small and that's how it is. And that's just who we are, and you kind of embrace that identity. What we found is that some of those people have kind of embraced that identity, is that we're just a small congregation of older folks and that's just who we are. And I think that's okay, but it is sad, and it's hard to crack back into that and say, hey, no, you can be much more than that. But that's some of the things that they're experiencing. That's some of the challenges that Trevor is dealing with as well, is that they're having to try and refocus and reprioritize and give them a new perspective and a new zeal for what they can be and help them see that vision that they can be more. Because if you've been small for so long, it's like, well, that's just who we are. And so that's one of the effects that has transpired over the years with them. So this has been a unique opportunity for me, a unique opportunity for our young people. I've not worked with a congregation much like this before, and so it was very challenging, and it gave us some things to even open our eyes about what mission work should look like and what we should do. So what did we do is your question. What did we do? Because you got a lot of kind of funny pictures there. So did y'all actually just go over there and have a lot of fun? We did, just so you know. And I almost died, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. So Trevor actually almost died, and it was awesome. So I'll tell you that too. So here's some pictures of our efforts that we did. One of the things, as I said earlier, we wanted to go and support. Primarily, we wanted to go and support our domestic missionary. His sister had been living with him for the summer, and so we got to build a relationship with his sister, and that was really awesome as well. We did some yard and property cleanup. We put together blessing bags for our community door knocking efforts that we were going to be a part of. We helped clean up around the church. We helped clean their fellowship hall and kind of do some spring cleaning. Even though it's the middle of the summer, we helped do some spring cleaning. The boys chipped away old paint on the baptistry and repaint the baptistry. That was a task in and of itself. So the boys actually helped repaint their baptistry. And then the boys also, we all participated in the weekly service together. We all helped to lead that Sunday morning service while we were there. So the yard cleanup, not much from the tornado. We found out when we got there, one of the plans was we were going to help with some of these still existing issues from the tornadoes, but apparently that community jumped right on top of it. There wasn't much to do as far as the tornado is concerned. However, one of their more prominent members, Larry, had just passed away not long before we went, and he was kind of a pillar of that congregation. And that sent them reeling. They're still grieving and they're hurting over that. His wife especially lives right down the road from the church building. And so with him gone and it being summer, if you don't keep your stuff up, your flower beds and your grass and all of that, it can get a little out of control. And so she is not able to do any of that. And so her yard had gotten way out of control, especially a lot of her flower beds. And so those two bottom pictures there that you see were some of the yard work that we did for her and pruning back some of her trees, revitalizing those flower beds for her. She had a lot of things that needed to be put back in some of her sheds. So we helped beautify her flower beds for her a little bit, move some things that she needed moved that she couldn't pick up for herself. So we did a lot of that work in the morning time because around lunchtime it was getting pretty hot, and so we would move on to doing some other things from there. So that was the yard cleanup that we did. The blessing bags, we had several of the ladies of the congregation came and started making a lot of just yummy baked goodies. And the girls helped them bake all of those goodies, and we started packaging them up in all of these baskets, these bags that we were going to take and give out while we were door knocking. If you want to know who ate the most sweets, it's Mac McReynolds. I thought my younger brother had a sweet tooth. Matt McReynolds has sweet teeth. There is no sweet tooth. Man, I've never seen why is it people that are tall and slender that can eat whatever they want, you know? I seen that man put away like an entire 9 by 13 cake. And I'm like, I kind of hate you a little bit, you know? So we put together sweets. We took those bags and we went door knocking. In those door knocking efforts, one of those things that we wanted to accomplish was to invite people to church. Trevor was putting on a series, an apologetics series. He was going to be starting that following Wednesday. And so what he wanted to do, he wanted us to go out and door knock and invite people to New Hope in hopes that they would come and be a part of that apologetic series, and that maybe he could draw some people in with that. He had done a really good job of trying to promote it and send that out so that people knew. He had sent it out to all kinds of congregations, not just churches of Christ, but he had sent it out to denominational churches, letting them know that he was going to be putting on an apologetic series. I haven't followed up with him as to how that went, because he and I both have had busy summer since, but that's what he was going to be doing. And so our door knocking efforts were for that, and in hopes of maybe meeting some young families and bringing some young families in. When we went to services with them that Sunday, they had one child in the building, and she was visiting with her grandparents. And so that's a really hard thing to do. If you ain't got children in your congregation, it's a really hard thing to do to keep it growing and prepare for the future. So that was one of the efforts we were looking to do there. So we went door knocking. One van went one way, one van went the other, and we hit a lot of different houses. What we come to find in these door knocking efforts, it's very interesting that you have very unreceptive people at times. Even if you're holding a goodie bag, they don't want it. I don't get it. You know, you got all these sweets, and they seem a little apprehensive to even let you in the door. Some people were like inviting kids in, and we're like, no, don't go in the house. Just give them the basket and let's go. One lady tried to pay us for her basket, and we were like, no, we're not going to let you do that either. So some people were very receptive, some not so much. But one of the things that we figured out by accident was that some of the houses that we hit, because before we left, Trevor said, hey, there's some houses we don't need to go to. It being a small town, everybody knows everybody, all right? And then with church things and family things, there's some bad blood in some places. And so he said, don't hit houses A, B, C, D, and E. Well, he forgot to tell us about F. And so Amanda and I hit house F. And so what happened, though, is what I thought was really cool is it happened to be a son of one of their members that had stopped going to church with them. There had been some bad blood in the family, and there had been some bad blood in the church. And what it did is it opened up a conversation. It opened back up a conversation between that man and his mother, and opened up a conversation between that man and Trevor. And so what we come to find out is by accident is they were like, hey, yeah, you shouldn't have went to that house. And I'm like, well, nobody told me. So we went to that house, and the guy was a little frustrated because he thought his mom sent us. And so he was a little perturbed with his mom. But come to find out, she didn't send us. We just happened upon that house. Well, it opened up dialogue with them two again. It opened up dialogue with him and Trevor was going to start trying to build that relationship with him. Well, we come to find out with that particular woman, she has 3 children, all living in the area, and none of them, except for one, attend church with her. One of her sons that actually does attend church with her, his wife attends the local Baptist church and takes their children to the local Baptist church. The other 2 children don't attend at all, and they have families. And so what we developed in the door knocking efforts was dialogue. Even by accident, we developed dialogue to where Trevor's efforts when we left, his goal was to start working on that family. Well, they had a young family that he just performed a wedding for, and he's hoping to get them more involved. They seem ecstatic about that. So when we left, his goal was to work on that family and that young couple. And he said, I want to work on these young families. And I'm like, that's the best thing that you can possibly do, is not to just spread yourself so thin, hone in on 3 or 4 families and start working on them. And that's what his goal was when we left. So that was what door knocking did. That was our yard and property cleanup there. And then even our church cleanup went very well in trying to help them spruce their building back up and repaint their baptistry. So those were our efforts. Those were our efforts while we were there. One of the other things that we did, I don't know if it's in here or not right now. Oh, no, not yet. So one of the other things that we did is we try to build relationships with the community, and not just the community at large. In that area there, what would y'all say? We passed probably within a 10-mile radius. There's about 5 churches of Christ, at least 5. One of them was a little bit larger. It's kind of like Margaret Street, and so our youth group spent a couple of nights with their youth group, hanging out with them, singing with them, playing games with them. They had us over for dinner one night, and we hung out in their church building, their fellowship hall, just like you would here, and played games together and built that relationship. Come to find out, there's a possibility for more mission work with that congregation. So it opened up some doors for us, and they were even so inspired by what we were doing for the New Hope congregation that they possibly want to get involved with a mission effort with us for New Hope in the future coming up. And so they were so inspired by that, they said, hey, we want to be a part of that. We want to help our sister congregation. You don't see that always. Especially in neighboring churches, is kind of we're always vying for the people's attention in the community. And this congregation, which is quite a bit larger, we're like, hey, we want to help them. We want to help them too, so let us know how we can do that. And so there's communication going on there as well. One of the other cool things we did on our fun day on Sunday, we went bowling and hung out together, went out to eat, found a really awesome coffee shop, and then we were invited to a Devo. We thought it was just with that youth group. We were invited to a Devo, drove back into Alabama. That was one thing that Trevor forgot to mention. We were driving an hour back into Alabama. So we drove back into Alabama to this park. And we ended up in this park, and this one of these things that the youth group and I have talked about starting here now, they had about 5 or 6 different youth groups and so many adults and children as well in this pavilion at a park with a big screen TV, and they just sang for an hour. They sang for an hour. They just got together, and it was singing in the park. And it was really cool because there were other people in the park kind of watching that. It was a really neat experience, uplifted us especially. And built some relationships there, and it helped me network with some other guys that I didn't know either. So that's what our mission trip looked like. It was a little bit different for us. It was a little bit different for us because we didn't do a whole lot as far as it's concerned to hitting like 500 homes door knocking and putting on a VBS. There wasn't a ton of things that we did. If you were to go back and look, it's like, well, y'all went to New Hope and you didn't really do anything. We did some effective things. But I think what our main priority was to go and build up this congregation. We wanted to go and encourage Trevor. We wanted to go and encourage New Hope and let them know there is a congregation that loves you and is praying for you and is willing to help you out because they need it. They need that more than anything. So some of our funny things, I guess, before we close this out here in just a second, I almost did die. I figured out, well, I didn't tell anybody, I am slightly allergic to long-haired dogs. Well, guess what? Trevor has a long-haired dog that lives in the house. So I didn't tell anybody, and he was good because he slept in the back with his sister all week. Not Trevor, the dog. Just want to clarify. So the dog slept in the back, but then on like Monday night, Trevor said, "Hey, he's gonna sleep up here with us." Yeah, I want to get out of here. So I had a major allergic reaction and pretty much almost died the next day. It was just like. It was awful. It was awful. It's draining out of my eyes and my ears and my nose and all that. It was pretty bad. And then Trevor made fun of me for it a little bit, but then he got a tick on him that stayed on him for quite some time. And Trevor used to, like, I'm a little bit of a hypochondriac, and Trevor always makes fun of me for that. I've never seen that man be so scared in my life. We sat down. He found that tick on him. We went to dinner that night, and he wouldn't hardly eat. And I'm like, dude, what's wrong with you? And he's like, this is it. This is it. You know, apparently it was one of those ticks that doesn't give you Lyme disease, but it's this other disease where when you eat animal products that you get violently ill and you have to be a vegan for the rest of your life. And so he had pretty much accepted that he was going to be vegan for the rest of his life. And so we're sitting there eating tacos, and he's like, well, I guess this is it. It's the last taco I'm ever going to eat, you know. And I've never seen Trevor like that, so when he comes back in October, you need to ask him if he's vegan or if he's still eating meat. It was a really awesome experience because I had never got to see that side of him, and he was terrified for like 12 hours until, like, even when we left, he's like, well, I'll let you know how it goes. I haven't heard anything, so I'm assuming it's good. I'm assuming it's good at this point. So we had a really great time, though, with our kids. Here's the picture of us bowling, and here's all of those that went with us. So we had myself and Amanda Mocker and Matt McReynolds were the adults. Appreciate those two for going with me very much. Ayla Napier and Jada Crider and Lakeland Enterkin. And then Gabriel Lee, Luke McReynolds, Dawson Hitchcock. Forgot to add your last name in there. I'm sorry. It's just Dawson. It's like Prince. From now on, you're Dawson. So, and then we got Elliot Wilson and Brody Crider all went with us. We had a great time. Look, the one thing that you should be so thrilled about with these kids is that even at Legacy, when we went to the Legacy Conference, we had a service day. These kids do not shy away from what needs to be done. They are servants and workers in every part of the definition that we could describe it and hope for. They do not shy away. They do not tell you no. Most of the time, they don't even huff and puff. It's like, hey, we need to do this, and they jump in and they get it done. That was even complimented on them at Legacy. We had our service day at Legacy. 2 of the youth groups we were working with actually left because they were like, yeah, we're not doing anything. We're leaving. This is kind of boring. And so they just bailed on us, and we were the only group left at that location we were at. And the person that was running that came to us and said, wow, all I have to do is ask, and your youth group will jump in and do whatever's asked. I'm like, look, we're here. So you just tell us, and never offer a bad word or a complaint. They just do. And you should be proud of your young people for that and just their attitude as it pertains to serving other people. They truly do love God, they love each other, and they serve other people. They understand what it is to be like Jesus. I'm so proud of them. I'm so proud of them and who they are and what they've done this summer, but just all the time. They know how to emulate Christ in their everyday life, and they've done such a great job at it. And so I want you to be proud of them too. I want you to be proud of what we have here at Margaret Street with these young people. As we close this out, here's some other pictures, I guess, for fun here. Before I give my devotional, we did have some fun, y'all. We did have some fun. There's the girls with a picture of Elvis. They wanted to get that in there. We did have a karaoke night the first night we were there, and all of our kids jumped in and did something, and it was quite fun. We had some great devos together. Trevor brought us a great devo one night that lasted like an entire hour. We didn't even mean for that to happen. Through conversation, our kids, we were sitting in that church building, our kids never said, man, this is taking forever. We talked for over an hour about what we were studying in Scripture. And then the next night, our devotional probably went a couple hours or more with what we were doing there. We had this Web of Love thing going on. You'll have to let your kids tell you about it. It was really awesome. So we had a great time. We had fun together. We had relationship building together. That was one of our goals, was to build relationships not only with that community, but with each other. And to just continue this effort of being more like Christ every day. So there's some of your pictures for fun there. But that's our report for tonight. And Trevor will probably update you on some more that he would like to say. I tried not to say a whole lot and try and infringe on what he might say when he comes in October. But that was our mission trip to New Hope in July. Those are the things that we did, that we participated in. And we're grateful to the elders for letting us do that. We're grateful to the parents for letting us take your kids to do that. We had a wonderful time. It was very uplifting. Very uplifting and just always a good time to be with these kids. One of the things I wanted to tell in our devotional tonight as we get ready for the invitation, as I prepared this and as I've been thinking ever since we left New Hope, Margaret Street, you're blessed. We're blessed. We are so blessed. Sometimes we look at the world and we think, man, what are we accomplishing? What are we doing? You know, we could always be bigger. There's always that desire as Americans especially, is to always want more and more and more. And I think that's okay to want more and more and more. But church, I encourage you tonight to see how blessed we are and what God is doing in this community, what God is doing in this church, and what God is doing in you and your families. One of the things we always talk about with our youth group is it could always be worse. It could always be much worse. We could be in a building like this with 17 people. And think about how devastating, how discouraging that might be. But church, we are blessed with the community we live in. It's growing in the community. We're bringing in more people. That means we're having more interactions with people. We're bringing people in the doors here. People are hearing the Word of God preached. People are seeing a loving family here. And so what we need to do is not become complacent, but to take those gifts that we have and build upon them. One of the things we see in 2 Corinthians, and Paul is talking to the church at Corinth, and one of the encouragements that he is giving is that you as a church are blessed. Take those gifts, as we read in Galatians a minute ago. Take that freedom you have. Take those gifts that you have been given and use them for the good of other people. We have been blessed to so much that we have resources, we have manpower, we have time that we can do so much. And so what I want to encourage us with is to not just be like, hey, that was really cool and we went on a fun trip, but let's look for more opportunities in our community. Let's look for more opportunities like this with our missionaries, and maybe considering going on a mission trip to Italy or Paraguay or to Hatley, Mississippi, considering things that we can be involved in and using our gifts for the good of other people. Because the missionaries that are serving under our eldership's guidance right now are not dealing with congregations like ours. They're dealing with congregations that are small, that are somewhat struggling, that may be somewhat complacent, and it's a challenge. And so my encouragement to all of us tonight is to see how blessed we are, to be thankful for how blessed we are, be grateful to God and pray about that every day, and then pray for those people, pray for those churches, pray for those missionaries that are doing some of this harder work in these areas by themselves. We have 250 people here that we get to work together with. A lot of these guys are doing it on their own, or maybe just even with a small family or a small group of people. So let's be grateful, and let's use our gifts for good, and let's use our gifts to bless other people, and let God use us to bless those other people. The sad reality is this, church. The sad reality is this. There are more congregations of the Lord's church in America like New Hope than like Margaret Street. That's just the sad reality. I can get you facts, I can get you figures, I can show you that, but there are more congregations that are struggling than are thriving. And so if we are one of those congregations that are thriving, let's use those gifts. Let's glorify God with those gifts. Let's glorify God with what we have right now, and not just sit on our hands. Let's get out and let's use the momentum that we have. And so that's my encouragement to you. You may not be able to go on one of these mission trips, but all of us have a mission field. All of us have a mission field in our backyards, in our homes, in our workplaces, in our schools, in our friend groups. All of us have a mission field. Are you taking advantage of that mission field? Are you taking advantage of that to help revitalize that person's soul and lead them to Jesus, and to help this congregation grow so that we can help other congregations grow? Because that's what we want to do. We want to be the church that we read about in Scripture that understands who God is, we understand who Jesus is, what He's done for us, and all we want to do is share that with other people. We want to share that with the lost. And so the only difference between us and a person that is lost is Jesus. That's it. The only difference between us in this room tonight and the people outside of these doors that are lost is Jesus. And so we need to take what we have and go share it with them. Now, I understand it can be daunting at times. I can understand it's daunting because some of us are dealing with things that we need love, we need support, we need encouragement. And yes, we do. Yes, we are in a thriving church, we're in a thriving congregation, and we have a lot of momentum going. But that doesn't mean that everybody in the congregation is moving forward with that kind of momentum. Some of us are still struggling, and we need encouragement. And so what I want to encourage you with is it's not just our focus is not just on the outward. Our focus is still always on the inward as well. And we want to encourage our brothers and sisters in here too. We want to lift you up and help you in whatever way you need. And so we want you to let us know if there's a need there. But if you are not a Christian and you want to know Jesus, you want to be a part of something like this, and you want to be that person that can go and share the love of Jesus with someone else, you have every opportunity to change your life, to give it to Him, to deny yourself, and then to be buried with Him in baptism, raise as a new creature, and take up that cross and go follow Him. If you'd like to know more about that, you can ask us, or you can respond right now. Whatever your need is, we want to offer the invitation right now. So let's stand and let's sing together.